Hi, my name is Justice Tshabalala. I'm the CEO and founder of Tino Media. We're based in Norwood. Telling you about myself. I'm a very humble person, very quiet person, very loud person. Don't get me angry. How I started the podcast, or what made me to be involved into podcasting, is that I just wanted to tell people stories. You know that boring story that people wouldn't be interested in. I will take that and turn it into a story that's interesting using my techniques and also my editing skills so that I can put the content out there. So I think there's a lot of topics in this country, South Africa specifically, or globally, that people don't want to talk about. Speaking about rape, speaking about theft, speaking about stories that you wouldn't really hear of, right? So me and my producer, what we do is that we sit down, create a strategy that let's go for the people that people wouldn't really, get to hear their stories. So we sit down, she gets to make the research, look for these people, we bring them in. I think for me, mostly it's about the editing and how we ask the questions. Most of the time, if you go on an interview, they're always going to interrupt you because of, for example, radio. They're going to disrupt you because of they pushing for ads and, music and stuff like that. So podcasting as a whole, it gives you an opportunity to vent, right? And also how I push my own content on Justify is that we allow you to speak. If you want to speak for an hour or 2 hours, speak. We're not going to be here to grill you or to question you too much. You get to tell your story. You know your story best than anyone else. Me getting my first check on YouTube, wow, man. My first reaction was like, I'm quitting my job. There's no need for me to continue with the job that I had at the time. But my job at the time was just another YouTube channel, right? I was working at another YouTube channel, and we were not working full time, like 9 to 5. So we were working when we needed to shoot. So for me, when I saw the check was, okay, I can pay for my rent, I can pay for my car if I have to, I can pay one of the people that I work with or my team. For me, that was a deal breaker, And I think also it depends. For example, for myself as a podcaster and running a media company, obviously I need to reinvest into the business. But if that check finds you whereby you don't have to have that bigger responsibility, so you can just buy yourself a Porsche, you can buy yourself an iPhone, or maybe you can travel. There are, YouTubers out there that are getting decent money and they get to travel. But for me, it's about reinvesting and creating jobs. So basically, before I became a podcaster, I was already a businessman. I was running Tino Media. So Tino Media is literally the first baby. Then, the podcast justifies the second baby. So at Tino Media, what we do is that we create digital content creation for brands, bigger brands like your African Bank, Nando South Africa. So before I became a podcaster, I was an entrepreneur before. But I would say that the podcast has played a role in helping me to fund my business, because there's a point whereby obviously you need funding. You need this, you lose a camera, so the podcasting can boost to fund the business, which is shocking. I think Justify podcast, what I have to be honest with you, I thought I was just, allowing South African stories to reach to Africa. I was not even thinking about Africa, but just South Africa, right? I looked at the audience in South Africa. I was not aware that YouTube would suggest my content to the world, right? But then when I noticed that there's actually people around the world who are interested in South African stories, it can be anybody, being scammed by Sangoma, there's somebody in New York, that you wouldn't, I would think that you wouldn't find a Sangoma in New York, but somebody in New York would be interested in what happened to this person's story. So for me, I think that was a deal breaker, that we as Africans, we can be able to tell our stories in our own way without other people telling our stories, with their own way. But for me, that was big. It changed the whole game. And I never wanted to tell an African story according to an American way or a Chinese way, Asian way. I just wanted to tell the African story according to Africans. And I am not telling the story. The people that I speak to on the podcast, they are the ones that are telling the story. I would say that digital content creation, especially on YouTube, it's so big, it's so huge, and I think people mustn't look down on it, you know. You can literally build a business. There are people that have podcasts and they've built a business, you know, from a podcast. It's not just a podcast. People don't know that behind the scenes, there's like 5 people. There's a producer, there's a manager, there's another podcast whereby they have a CEO and stuff like that. So it becomes a bigger business. And also, I would, just to add on that, there's brands that would come in to sponsor so that we can grow and grow and grow and to invest back into the business. So podcasting is a very big media that will change the game.